And Dizzy Gillespie, who I always, he was the catalyst of that whole so-called modern movement then. He was in New York, and he was working with Cab Calloway. And during the day, we'd go up to his apartment, Thelonious Monk. And it was cute, too, because his wife, who was a chorus girl at that time, also worked during the day. And we used to wear this grease in our heads. What do they call it? Lay 'em straight. Because everybody had this grease on their hair. And she had signs over the chairs, "Don't lean your head on my walls." We spent all our days in Dizzy's house experimenting with music. There was Monk and Kenny Clark, and his home was like a classroom, and Charlie Parker. And it's pretty much the same today, I'm sure, with our young musicians who are doing things.
I spent a little time with you before the show, Mr. Roach, and a word that I figure that pretty much sums you up for me is a passionate man. What makes you so passionate, and why are you this way?
Well, I guess because I'm social. I came from the Deep South, and I witnessed the kind of oppression that our people had to go through. And, you know, I was thinking about that this morning, working on my autobiography. I'm saying to myself, you know, we are a people. And the Black American is the only group who've come to this country. I mean, we all are foreigners. God gave this country to the Native Americans. That's whose land this is. So all of us are immigrants. And, but we're the only group that's here of color who doesn't have a second language. We don't have a second language. And I thought about that this morning. Why is it that everybody comes here, has a second language, they have a culture, they can identify with someplace. Oh, I'm Irish American, oh, I'm French American, oh, I'm Nigerian, and I'm from this. I got in a cab just this week coming from the airport, and the gentleman who was driving the cab was from West Africa. I think he was from Guinea. Anyway, he had some tapes in his cab, and I'm listening to the tapes, and I finally said, what language is that? And it was an African language. It wasn't French, it wasn't Spanish, it wasn't English. It was, what did he say it was? It was Ga, one of the languages. It was beautiful. The music was beautiful, the language was beautiful, and it brought home again to me the fact, wow, here's a black man driving a cab who's got a totally different thing going on, so he has a language of his own, other than the colonial language that he was, when colonialism came into Africa, he also speaks English, he speaks his own language, and now he's up here with us. So I'm saying, so when you ask me what makes me so passionate, is because we as a people have had to struggle, and we still are struggling, of course, as you well know, you know. Our young people didn't have an opportunity to hear the Paul Robesons and the W.E.B. Du Boises and the Marcus Garveys, but they had a chance to see and hear Martin Luther King and Malcolm X, and still, as soon as we get strong enough, or we have the people's ear, and it looks like we're being organized, they're just snuffed out and taken off the scene. Well, my passion comes because I'm a black man who's in the United States of America, and I'm still searching for me and myself, for my family, for my children and everything. We're still wondering. I can't say, hey, like this cab driver who said he's from Ghana, and I'm saying to myself, I can't say that. I can say I'm African American, but I don't speak a language, and I don't know the culture. I remember once I was visiting, I spent some time in Africa. When I was going to school, I traveled anyway. I went to Haiti and places like that, Cuba, as a young man. But the time I spent in Africa, I'll never forget, because I was sitting in a street cafe. It was in Accra, talking to one of the great writers, Wole Soyinka. Great writer. He's from Nigeria, but he was in Ghana at that time, editing a book, editing a magazine that was formed by Richard Wright's family, who was based in Ghana at that time. In any case, he was saying some wonderful things. He said, you know, Max, even a guy like Thelonious Monk or Miles Davis, these guys are so black that their blue comes out of them. If they put on an Akbata and walk down the street, we would know that they weren't African. I said, really? He says, yeah. He says, because of the way they, see, Africans have always worn sandals, so they slide, you know, like this. We wear shoes and we pick our feet up. He said, we'd right away say, yeah. You know, because a lot of brothers go over there and put the stuff on and don't say anything, you know. But the way they walk reveals that we come from another place. In fact, people from the East, even the Japanese slide, the Middle Eastern people, because of sandals. Shoes are a European thing, and you got to lift your feet up like this to walk. You can't do like that. But a lot of little wonderful things you learn when you travel in places like that, of course, I'm sure you know about yourself. But my passion does come from the fact that I realize that we haven't been given the opportunity, you know, to really participate in this society of ours as citizens. And it's something that we're going to struggle with. I'm not angry about it. I just want to get even or to enjoy parity.
You mentioned the fact that you also came up in a time when Marcus Garvey, Malcolm X, Dr. King, amongst others, W.E.B. Du Bois. These were your contemporaries, even though they weren't necessarily your same age.
Yeah, Paul Robeson.
Paul Robeson.
Yeah.
Great men.
Absolutely.
History has proved this. So they shape your life directly. Do you think that something like that is needed now, and if you think that that's happening now?
Yeah, I think, you know, nature has a way, even though sometimes we may not realize it, of equalizing everything. You know, you take, today, when I went to school, we got instruments to take home with us, and I know many of the musicians from Chicago who went to school here. We were given instruments and we had a chance to really work at learning something about our music and ourselves, teachers who taught us. And today, the young people, cultural enrichment has all but been taken out of the schools. You know, the schools that they say, public schools that is. They say that the reason for that is because of the economy and this and that and the other. But the public school system was started after the Civil War, when the South, tongue-in-cheek, sent black senators to Congress. That's part of the history. When they lost the Civil War, they said, okay, if you want these niggas, then we'll send them up. And they dressed them up and sent them up there to be representatives of the state. Not knowing that these men knew what was going on, and they started the public school systems. They called them free schools at that time. And that school system and the public schools ever since then have never been totally accepted by the power structure of this country. They want us to go to private schools or this, and that's where you're supposed to get the proper education, so to speak.